everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Maria Espinoza, and I'm the planning manager of the Planning and Placemaking Department with the Downtown DC Business Improvement District. You're joining us tonight for our first Downtown DC Pedestrian Safety and Experience Study Community Meeting. We are so excited to have you here tonight. Thank you for your time. The Downtown DC bid is working to improve the pedestrian experience and create safer and accessible streets that are dynamic and comfortable walking spaces within the downtown area. The downtown bid is collaborating with Tool Design Group, who's the lead consultant on this study. During this meeting, we will share the goals and objectives of the project, existing conditions, and the team will share potential site locations to focus on within the downtown area, followed by a Q&A session. Please submit your comments and or questions using the Q&A button so that we can address them. And at the end, we will also unmute those that wish to make verbal comments. We welcome your feedback, and it is extremely valuable to us to hear from you tonight. I'm going to pass it over to Jim Sebastian with the Tool Design Group team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. It's great to see everybody here tonight. We're very excited to be working on this project. Next slide, Brittany. So I think Maria explained this events tonight. We're going to be going through a little bit of background, talk about the existing plans and conditions downtown, look at some best practices from around the city as well as around the country. And then we're going to look at sites for improvement. That's where we could really use some of your input. And we're going to have kind of an hopefully exciting interactive component where we're going to do some real-time polling as well. So stay tuned for that. Next slide. So the vision we have for this, we came up with this with the bid staff based on their request for proposals. And we're trying to simultaneously improve the safety and experience for downtown pedestrians. We want to also work with existing plans that the bid has and DDOT has and other agencies. And as part of this study, during the course of the study, we want to come up with 3 areas where we can do implementation of quick wins. So like tactical urbanism type projects that will be done during the life of the study, and we can evaluate them. We also have room for evaluating some longer term projects and coming up with concepts for longer term solutions as well. Next slide. I think everybody knows where we are and where the bid is, but just in case, we've got Thomas Circle and the White House to the west, moving through Chinatown, Judiciary Square over to Union Station in the east. And you can see the borders of the bid there. So why are we here tonight? Why is this project happening? Why do we need your input? Well, as you all probably know, we've seen a pretty big drop in the number of pedestrians coming downtown since before the pandemic, somewhere in the order of 40% as of numbers from this past spring, 40% drop. And we still have persistent safety concerns. We have pedestrian crashes that we want to try to address. So it's this combination of trying to simultaneously bring more people downtown while decreasing the number of crashes and injuries and even fatalities that are happening on the downtown streets. Next. So here's where we'd like to kind of get just a little bit of information from you all to kick things off and keep it interesting. And Brittany's going to pull up something called a Mentimeter poll. There's a couple ways you can access this. You can either hold your phone up to the QR code, and that will bring you to the website menti.com, or you can just go to menti.com, and either way you put in that number there, 1196727. So we'll give everyone a few seconds to try that and get the poll up, and then once you're there you can start entering in questions. We only have about 4 questions at this point, and then we're going to do about 5 more. Oh, looks like people have figured it out. So this just gives us an idea of who's here tonight, how you utilize the downtown area, why you come down here. Looks like a lot of people work downtown. We have a few residents. Still trickling in.
Those that missed it, the website is up top, www.menti.com, and you use the code 1196-727.
Yeah, we don't have to have everyone's answer, but this gives us a good sampling of what we've got here tonight. While this is filling in, I'll just tell you, we're just joined by Scott Harris, who's another planner with our organization, and Brittany Sink is an urban designer who's going to be speaking in a few minutes, both with tool design. All right, next question. How do you usually travel to downtown DC? How do you get downtown? It should be showing up on your phone or your computer right now. All right. Most drivers, transit and bike are neck and neck. Walking is gaining ground. Oh, now we're tied. Walk, transit, and bike, and walking in the lead. All right, now once you're downtown, how do you get around? Assuming you move around once you get downtown. All right, walk. Gonna be the clear winner here, probably, which is the biggest reason that we're here today. I think this is the last one for this session, which is what is your age, roughly? One more demographic question. All right, that was our first round of questions. Now I'm going to turn it over to Brittany to give you a little bit more context on the planning environment downtown and in the bid area.
Hi guys, I'm a landscape architect, and so as part of the history, we've looked at this area and the L'Enfant plan, everyone's favorite. As far as monumental scale and views, that's what the idea was behind it. So we looked at where is it in the bid, and we outlined that for you. And then we asked the question, what does this mean for the pedestrian experience and level of safety? So this is our district, and from a pedestrian safety perspective, there's a lot of wide streets, large buildings, and you can get lost in the landscape because of that. The intent was for people to feel small. So here's an example when you're looking at the portrait gallery. Oh, this is what we're focusing on, the people in the landscape. So there's a little precursor to how we're experiencing it. So what do we do with these wide streets? We're going to need to consistently come back to how are people using them, and how is the mode distributed across, like, are there enough cars that we should be widening How many lanes? Are there sidewalks and they need to be wider because of the amount of people? We just have to constantly stay in that balance, evaluating the use versus the need. And so then it also comes down to, with those large buildings, if you're a pedestrian, you need it to be interesting on the ground level. So that's something that we can add, and just make sure that there's things that are human scale. And lastly, for a safety perspective, we want people to be seen when they're at an intersection or crossing the street. As far as the monumental views, it's very orienting. You have monuments to look at. It provides a sense of grandeur. And so you know where you are based on these landmarks. It's harder to get disoriented when you can see those. But the other thing that it adds is, because there are these views, there's triangles. And triangles introduce irregular intersections, which can be unsafe if people don't understand how to move or where to look or how to cross. So that's our goal for this, is to maintain those views, but also create a sense of prospect and refuge where people can come off of those very grand boulevards and have a place to congregate. There's a big need and desire for public use and public space in this downtown. I think, as we've experienced from other studies that are taking place. And lastly, what can we do to make those intersections more regular so that people know what to expect when they're coming to them? These are some of the intersections that we're making sure that we're watching, because based on an analysis that we ran, these are where our high risk areas are. We also took a look at volumes, and it may not be any surprise to anyone what we're seeing, but there's a significant emphasis on cars and driving in this area. So we need to take that into consideration as well. As far as pedestrian activity, this is how we mapped it. Red is the high pedestrian areas, blue where it's lowest. And then lastly, the heat map for where crashes are occurring. The circle indicates where one accident has occurred, and the number indicates where multiples have occurred. So also part of our analysis and just putting as many things to paper as possible, we got together as a group, shared how we know the bid as a group. When we're intimately walking on those spaces, what do we feel? What do we need to know? And what are we taking into account? And some of the conclusions we came to when we asked, where are the people and why are they there? There's an area that people are more active, and there's an area that people are less active. And that was in line with some of the presentations that we looked at, which is based on principles of spaces needing to be comfortable, engaging. People need to be able to move and go through them as they need to. And then they should also be well connected, legible, convenient. These are all principles of spaces that we enjoy to be in as people. And then lastly, the urban design principles kind of told us, where are the people and where are they not? It's where they feel most welcome. So some observations as far as that pedestrian experience. In the active area, we have buildings that are larger, or sorry, they are not as large, and they have more uses, smaller blocks, and lots of attractions such as Chinatown, Convention Center, places that people want to get out and walk, and as well as they're well serviced by the metro. On the other side, there's many highway ramps, institutional buildings with a little less attraction and drive to get there. So now we're going to switch over to another survey, which is about more about what your experience has been. And so hopefully you haven't closed Menti, and it's the same code as before. So go ahead and fill in what your favorite street to walk along in downtown is. Should be a free response and they will come in as people answer. And some commonalities about 7th and F. All right, and then as you think about these answers, which street do you enjoy walking the least in downtown? Same answer. All right, thanks everyone for your expressive answers. This is all great. Now, taking into account what you answered on the last page, what makes that street your least favorite? What's the characteristics that make you feel that way about that street? Okay, I think we have a few more questions. Last one is, what are the biggest challenges to walking downtown? This isn't just about your last response. This is everything about the bid. Very good. Thanks, guys. Okay, you get one word or two. What's the walking experience in downtown? Wow. Thanks for keeping it fun, guys. We appreciate all your input. And I think that's the end of it for our questions. We're going to jump over back to our presentation. We're going to talk to you about our best practices that we came up with and maybe some potential sites that we're looking at. These are the studies that we reviewed. Some are currently underway, other ones are approved. If you have anything that you would add to this list, you can throw it in the chat. And we compiled a long list of what you can do to bring solutions to some of these problems that you guys have raised. And we're going to keep drawing up more, but this is what we got for now. And so here's a description of what some of them are. Anyone who's not familiar, a curb extension is when you extend where the curb is. That can either be with paint or with an actual curb, and it helps people take their turns a little bit slower, see where a pedestrian is before they make a decision to yield or keep going. We've also got raised crosswalks, which allows the pedestrian to be more visible, and also helps people pause and modify their speed when they're coming up to a crosswalk, draws more attention to it. Then there's also mid-block crossings where you can extend out into the roadway where people are already maybe jaywalking, or there's just a desire line there, and there's a need to get across. So sometimes you have to make accommodations like that. There's some other solutions for something like a curb extension or a road closure. You can do asphalt art. There's a program in DC that's currently underway. People may be familiar with that. You can also close streets or create plazas, improve open space. It gives you lots of texture and helps people slow down and just understand this is a public place, and so they need to look for people. This can be done with either a level street where there's no curbs, or just a road closure, improving parks, that sort of thing. So here are some sites that have come across our table that we think are problem areas, or we've been given different insights. I'll come back to that map, but here's a list of the sources that they've come from and their location. I think, Jim, would you like to take it from here?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Brittany. I'm just going to give you, we just have a couple more slides and then we can get into some more questions and answers. The schedule is about a year long, and we're about in month 3 here. We're ramping up stakeholder involvement. We had an advisory committee that met last week. Now I have this public meeting. We're also hoping to go down to the holiday market to do some more interactive input gathering in person. Hopefully the weather will cooperate with us. And then we're going to move into designing. Once we've got some locations selected with your help, we're going to move into designing some of these quick wins over the winter, the tactical urbanism projects, and hopefully install those in the spring and wrap the project up next fall. So it's a pretty aggressive schedule, as you know, to do anything physically in the road or on the sidewalk in DC does take some time, but we're hoping that we can make it work at least on a pilot basis for some locations that are in need of some help. So the more immediate next steps are, like I said, these pop-ups that we're going to be doing. I also should have mentioned we're going to be launching an online survey, very similar to the one you took tonight. We'll probably tweak it a little bit based on our experience tonight and allow maybe a little bit longer for people to fill it out at their leisure online. And we'll use a similar one at the pop-up events. And then like I said, we hope to move into site selection. And then from there on, as I described, the design and installation next year. So here's where we'd like to start addressing people's questions. I saw some popping up at the very beginning, and you can put your questions in the chat, or I'm sorry, in the Q&A. I guess there's a chat and the Q&A. In the Q&A, if you would. And then once we've exhausted all the written questions, we can unmute people for those of you who'd prefer to state your question out loud, and we'll try to address it that way. We're going to probably rest, if you will, on this slide to keep the juices flowing in terms of ideas, locations. Where do you have problems? Well, where is a good experience? Where are the bad experiences? And it doesn't have to be limited to this list. It can be more, it can be different. But that's what we're going to try to tease out tonight. We got some good ones in the real-time survey there. Saw some familiar. I think there's definitely some overlap with what's on this list with what we saw just a few minutes ago. So we know we're headed in the right direction. But we want to expand the net a little bit more before we reduce it to just the 3 quick win locations. So maybe Maria, you can switch over so that we can all, or I guess I can see the Q&A here on my own. Start. Okay, the first one from Kartik talks about the 7th Street project. Maria, do you want to take that one?
Sure.
It says, or for those who aren't looking at the Q&A, maybe I should read it out loud. So the previous director of the bid killed the 7th Street car-free lanes. This project would have dramatically increased pedestrian safety on 7th Street. Is the downtown bid going to continue walking DDOT from moving forward with this project? I'll let Maria take a shot at that one.
I'm not sure if the question was to walk or to work, but we are working with DDOT with the 7th Street corridor. They haven't officially launched the project again, but we are working with DDOT, and more to come with 7th Street.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say 7th Street is on the table for discussion as part of this project and some other projects that are going on right now.
Yes.
All right, it looks like the next one is the same. Then I remain concerned about drivers who run through red, yellow lights when crossing. I'm acutely conscious of the red light violators. Yeah, so enforcement is not something we're looking at yet with this study. I know it's a constant battle, and that MPD has a number of ways to address it, mainly through camera enforcement. I don't know if you want to add anything more to that, Maria.
No, I think that's that's accurate, that we're not focusing on that, but we can definitely leave a note for the final report.
Yeah, I think we could probably pull in MPD as part of this process too, to see what their latest thinking on is, particularly for downtown. It's different all over the city. We have red light running and speeding problems, but they may have some more insights to how to deal with it in the bid.
Yes.
So scooters and bikes on sidewalks. Okay, so that's another enforcement issue that it's good to hear. I think we need to probably elevate that in our report, our existing conditions report, and our final report, and then maybe pull in some of our upper MPD representatives to let them know that this is not a problem that's going away. And I think the other thing maybe to think about, and this may be a little ambitious, but some of these quick wins, may be able to design a pilot project in a way that will either keep scooters off sidewalks or provide alternate space for scooters or bikes. So I think it's something we can keep in mind, both the riding of and driving of the vehicles as well as the parking. So I think it's something we should probably, if these are truly quick wins that are going to be examples for use elsewhere, maybe we can figure out a way to make them address that issue somehow.
Yeah, that sounds like there isn't enough space on the sidewalk for both, and people do not feel safe riding the road. So that is something that this project hopefully can begin to sort out. But yeah, the focus is on pedestrians.
And then the next one also looks like Carter said another enforcement issue with a crash that he had. Yeah, that's a tough one. Crash on a bike share bike, and the police would not issue a report. So it doesn't get picked up in the crash data. Are you accounting for significant underreporting? Well, I think that's something that DDOT's always taken into consideration. Even though we have a number, we know it's even higher, and that's part of the reason we're here today and tonight. In terms of the pedestrian master plan, yes, the pedestrian master plan and especially in its current rendition as part of Move DC is something we've looked at, but if there's something more specific in there, we'd be happy to drill down on that with whoever this is, like an anonymous, but we can either add more there or we can try to find you somehow. All right, the next one is the curb extensions. I noticed that on 7th Street myself, and I believe that they were, I think that was part of a resurfacing project when those planters and posts were taken out and in some cases pushed back. I was down there on Saturday, and I think some of them have returned to their original position. But I think in line with the question earlier, I think 7th Street is definitely on the table for a, another version or another examination of how to make that better. But in the meantime, I don't know, Maria, do you know anything about the current signing and marking situation on 7th?
I'm not sure about the sign-in and markings. I do know that there were some planters that were placed out and like bump outs created, and sometimes the planters move due to road work and they're not moved back. Please let the bid know that's the condition, and our SAM ambassadors will move them back. So please let us know. That's the case. They shouldn't be on the sidewalk. They should be on the roadway.
Yeah. We'll take a look at that for sure. Curious where retail fits into your protocol. Closing streets either to cars or pedestrian could further impact or even hurt retail. Oh yeah, we certainly would not want that. I think the kind of interventions we are aiming at would hopefully improve retail. I think it depends on the street. I think we've seen cases in DC where streeteries and other sidewalk expansion has probably helped retail and restaurants, but we don't want to make it so that access is going to have a negative impact on retail. And Maria's worked on retail and economic development research recently on the Gallery Place study, and they keep track of that on a regular basis. So you're probably better positioned to kind of speak to that, Maria, if you want to give it another shot.
So our economic development director, Jerry Wilcombe, would be the best person to address any retail specific questions. We did look at it in the Gallery China Place corridor study. But as Jim says, we don't want to impact retail. We're not necessarily looking to close down a street at this point. It's more for the short-term pilot programs. It's really enhancing that experience, but also the safety component. More realistically would be more of like an intersection condition, but it depends on what our survey brings up. But our intention is not to hurt any retail, and anything that's going to go in, we will speak to that ground floor retail if it is going to be an impact. So there will be some engagement that would happen if it's going to be like a closed street, as an example. But
yeah, we would certainly want the businesses to be on board with whatever we are proposing. This one from Timothy Fowler. Have you looked at allowing I think it's all-way pedestrian crossing times at lights, which I assume is similar to the one you're thinking of, or you're talking about what, like 7th and H, what we call the Barnes dance. We can definitely consider that. That is a pretty unique situation. We have one there, and there's one in Columbia Heights. They are hard to implement because they do take up a lot of time out of the out of the cycle. And in that case, at 7th and H, we had to eliminate all the turns in order to make it work efficiently. But depending on the intersection, it might be a possibility. Is there a plan to improve pedestrian crossings around Convention Center? So there's not a plan, but there's definitely a need. As you can see from our little map here, we identified the south side, and this doesn't show, but we also identified the north side of Mount Vernon Square as a problem for pedestrians. There's a big desire to cross from 8th Street on the south, and obviously from the entrance to the Convention Center on the north. Part of me says if there was an easy solution, it would have been done by now, but I had some ideas when I was out there recently that we can run by some of the stakeholders and see if there's any way. It's difficult because it's both sides are 4-lane, 2-way streets, which make it very difficult to provide any kind of crossing except a signal, a full signal at those locations. So we will raise it with DDOT and other stakeholders and see if there's any new ideas or possibilities, but it's a great question that keeps coming up. Well, we have another one about scooters on the sidewalk. We'll take that under consideration. It's enforcement, but it also could be a design. As Brittany was suggesting, maybe it's a design solution that can be part of it. Pedestrian only street on 7th. I'll just say once again that 7th is in play. Should we say 7th is under study as part of this study and some other studies? So I think that's one option. Blocking. I said blocking. Thanks. Great. I think got that. All right, I'm going to go to Ryan Tyler. Large delivery trucks that block crosswalks. Yes, familiar with that phenomenon. Oh, that could be once again, a design solution as well as an enforcement solution. So we will look at that as part of our quick wins. Scooters are limited to 12 miles per hour as an effort to harmonize the speed limit for scooters and cars. Make the car speed limit 12 miles per hour, so that scooters can be in the road. I think it's where Kartik's getting with that one. I don't know. I know that there's been an effort to examine speed limits in DC, and we can explore that downtown as well. Have you considered introducing more turn signals on green only? Red turn signals allow for pedestrians to have time to cross ahead of vehicular movement. Signals on green. Oh, this would be like limiting right turn on red. Okay, yes. Well, there is, of course, legislation that has moved through City Council to do just that. And honestly, I don't know what the implementation is for that, but the idea is to eliminate right turn on red except in certain instances. So I think that's the answer to that one. If anybody else knows more, they can type it in the Q&A as well. There is a bike lane on L Street, and yet the majority of scooter and bike rides are still riding on the sidewalks. That's frustrating to hear. I can only imagine that in some cases, at least, it's because for the bikes, it's because the bike lane might be blocked. As for the scooters, I would think that would be much more efficient to be in the bike lane. So we can check out the bike lane. I was involved in that one a long time ago, and I hope it's we need to make sure it's functioning properly. I know there's some new barriers put on some of the bike lanes to help keep the cars out. So
sometimes that can come down to people's comfort level.
Yeah. Okay, 7th and F. 7th Street problem, F to I, is not so much a design issue as people and economic issue. Vacant restaurants, other shops, unruly crowds, concerts, sporting events, Drunks drug out people on the sidewalk. Does your planning include these deterrents to pedestrians? It is a real change from the vibrant area. Yeah, I think it would be foolish not to consider these problems. So we will work with the bid to find out, there's a larger problems, obviously, than just pedestrian safety. But I know the bid is well aware of some of these issues, and we can work with different parts of the bid on how they're addressing them and how maybe some of the solutions we come up with could be part of it. But Maria, do you want to add anything to that? I know you've got folks that are thinking about those issues at the bid.
No, I think that you were spot on. It's something that we would consider, but it's not part of this study, and we are aware that it is an issue along the 7th Street. There is a lot happening. And the Gallery Place Chinatown study hoped to address some of those issues. So once that is launched, we can also continue working with that study. Great.
Is the assumption that pedestrians have higher priority than cars? That's a tough one. I think, there's various rules, laws, policies in place in DC, including, we talked earlier about Move DC, and there's a specific statement in there in DDOT's master plan about pedestrians having priority, but I think it really depends. So the idea of this study is to elevate the priority of pedestrians, at least in certain areas, and see how those could be translated to other areas of the bid. But it's a lot of different factors that go into that, and it's not really for me to say. Okay. Make sure I get in the right one here. If you walk along Mass Ave to K, sidewalk is too narrow, get the bike scooters race down the sidewalk scaring people. Fair enough. Yeah, I think problem with Mass Ave is it does not have dedicated, it doesn't have bike lanes. So if you are on Mass, they are often on the sidewalk because the space is wide, but the distance from the building to the street is very wide, but the actual space for pedestrians is relatively narrow because of some of the landscaping. And that, that might be a longer term solution that we could add to this study. Oh, Kenyatta. When evaluating 7th and Mass, please have also leverage the results of the high crash site visit. Oh, right. 4 years ago when Emily and Sam were still at DDOT. Okay, thank you, Kenyatta. We will definitely take a look at that. Mass doesn't come up as much on this map here, but it's been mentioned in terms of all the studies that have been done, but it's been mentioned a lot in just a few weeks that we've been working on this project. There's some difficult angled intersections there and some crashes. So we'll definitely look at 7th and Mass and some other intersections along Mass. Raise the street barrier on 7th between Mass K and New York. I assume that means the median. The barriers were placed there to prevent cars from making left turns on 7th Street from K. Oh, okay, and the car just like drive over the barrier, which is only inches. So is that the left turn traffic calming barriers, perhaps, the yellow devices? That I understand. If that's what that is, I understand that. And they can not only be maybe increased in size, but they've got posts that you can put on top of them. So, and a lot of times they get run over, but it's something we can definitely look at that intersection. Let's see. When the sidewalks come extensions to restaurant, are there any conversations ensuring that the sidewalk users are able to walk safely in these areas? Yeah, I mean, the streetery program is still relatively young, but I think that is one of our primary concerns, whether it's a sidewalk cafe from before the pandemic or even in the street, some of the newer ones. That's always something that at least when the permit is submitted that folks look at. And then what happens, as we talked about earlier, with enforcement and making sure the pedestrian way is maintained, can sometimes be another story. And I think you can work with the bid as well as DDOT and ensuring that on a case-by-case basis. But I think anything that we do as part of this study, we will definitely be making sure that, as much as we want activity and new activity into some of these public spaces, we want to, the main goal for the public space and the sidewalk area is to move pedestrians. Okay, bike lane abruptly ends at 7th and Mass and doesn't resume until 7th and N. Between those is a pedestrian hellscape. Right, okay, this is north of Mass, I assume along the convention center. Yeah, so the bike lane, yeah, we can look at that. I think there were plans to maybe extend that at one point. I think it's 2 northbound lanes and no bike lanes. So I think, as we talked about earlier, 7th is in play now. To be fair, north of Mass is outside, or just north of Mass. Well, the boundaries have shifted a little bit, but if we get too much farther north of Mass, it's outside the bid. But I think it's close enough that we can look at it for sure as part of this study. All right, why not enforcement? Good question. We're going to have to obviously elevate that as a concern as part of this study with our colleagues at MPD, or wherever else, maybe DDOT as well. Have you studied the old F and G street plans? They closed them at, yeah, I think a lot of us remember that era. And sometimes it's a success when you close a street to motor vehicles is a success, and sometimes it's less of a success. I think one of the factors, and I'm not an expert on this, but I think one of the factors to make them a success is you need to have existing activity and existing retail along the streets that you close. And I think at that time, and even now with the library on one side and church on the other, there was not a lot of activity, at least on F and G. So it's something to keep in mind. Is a good point.
I know I mentioned street closures in the presentation. I don't think we are a proponent of it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the context. If there's a huge demand and part, to put a word in for the experience, we've got safety and experience that we're trying to address here. So to put a word in for the experience piece, the downtown bid is competing with other bids in other neighborhoods, like the waterfront, like Georgetown, like Union Market, which have some, creative, unique spaces within their boundaries. And I think the bid would like to do some of that placemaking as well. But you want to make sure, A, it doesn't hurt existing businesses, that it enhances and increases activity and doesn't lead to some, just emptier spaces. So I think we've looked at a couple ideas for that kind of intervention. And there's these 2 other studies that are going along as well that some of you may have been involved in, the BID's Parks Master Plan, as well as the Gallery Place Plan. And they've got some ideas for reallocating street space. Unfortunately, they're not quite ready for prime time, so we weren't able to show them tonight, but I think they will be soon, and we can all kind of work together on this combination of placemaking, parks, safety, walking, and make the bid a better place. All right, where were we? The permissive left turn on green ball itself placed on 7th. Can we install red arrows to accompany green arrows so that cars don't turn left? I think that's a good signal question. We would have to look at I think we need some more specifics on that one. To have a red left arrow, we need a exclusive left lane. So that is sometimes the case. I think that is the case now in most of 7th Street. So, you know, maybe it's just a signal, like literally the signal heads need to be enhanced in some way, but that's a question from our colleagues at DDOT. Right, where are we now? Well, this project examine moving traffic lanes. Many streets downtown have many lanes leading to higher car speeds. I think it's safe to say that you know, road diet is one of the options that might be looked at for some of these locations. That's definitely one of the tools in the toolbox. But of course, we have to look at a number of different factors when we do that. Default right-on road be outlawed in 2025. Okay, so there's Richard knows more than I do on this. With the bit, okay. I encourage you to take dangerous driving thousands of times more seriously than cycling, scootering on sidewalks, because when a collision occurs, driver is thousands of times more likely to kill a pedestrian than a cyclist. That's a fair point. Have we looked at Georgetown streeteries? Yes, I'm not exactly sure what we're getting at there, but be happy to look closer. Public restrooms, no idea. Maria, do you know anything about public restrooms?
Not at the moment. I know that in the summer, the bid was considering a pilot program for porta potties, but it got, I don't think it fully, I think there was some spots, but it wasn't fully flushed out. So right now, no, not in this study, at least.
Okay. Put a vote in for public. Sounds like we got another vote for public restrooms there.
Mhm.
There are planters on the street at the intersection of 7th, but they are pushed. Yeah, we talked about that. I think at the very least we can work with the bid and DDOT to get those back to where they are supposed to be, including the tan bulb out paint. Downtown action plan. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. Do you want to take that one, Maria? Will this be integrated into the downtown action plan? I know that we have a number of studies that are kind of in slight overlapping but separate phases. So that one's a little bit further behind ours, and the other two are a little bit ahead of us.
So if this is referring to the actual downtown DC action agenda plan, for the long-term interventions, I feel like that should make it onto that review, but the short term, it depends on when that plan or that study is released, because remember, our timeline for our pilots are going to be in the spring of 2020, and action agenda might be around that time kicking off, or maybe a little bit earlier than that. So I'm thinking more in terms of like the long-term interventions for the action agenda. Yeah.
Great. And there's an existing, wasn't there an action plan several years ago? We could maybe look at that. We can kind of look at that and see if it, in terms of what's included and what's not included, and see if there's anything that would be helpful.
Yes.
Prohibit most left turns unless there's a turn arrow. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. I think that the permissive left, as they call it, can be difficult, not only for the driver making the left, but also for the pedestrians who are crossing the street at the same time. So it's something we can look at. Cobblestone roads or rougher roads that look nice and also cause drivers to slow down. It'd be nice to implement these on some of the bigger avenues and streets where people speed, but we need volume because they're main arterials. Yeah, I think different surfaces are possible. I know they are a challenge. They're a big challenge in terms of maintenance for the city. But you know, we've already seen some of that, right, in the city center area and like the wharf. So I think if we've got the right location and the right kind of maintenance plan, it might be possible. But I think of like a broader cobblestone in larger areas, it would be a challenge based on what I know. Okay. I think it's short-sighted not to consider creating pedestrian safe plazas. Right now, it's anything for drivers. And yeah, I think plazas are definitely in our toolkit. So, once again, it all depends on the location, but I think we'd like to see maybe one of those as an option. Have you looked at the Americans ASLA Chinatown Green Street project? Well, that does ring a bell, but I have not seen it. Have you seen it, Maria? And how do we get it?
It rings a bell, but I haven't, it's been a couple of years.
Okay, well,
Can look into it.
yeah, that's what we're looking. That's part of the reason we're here tonight, is to make sure we were looking at all the relevant plans in the area. Chinatown Green Street.
I think that was on I Street, if I remember it.
Was that I Street?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a long I Street. But I'll do, yeah, let's look into it.
Yeah, I Street came up on your parks plan as well, so let's definitely take a look. All right. Any discussion of scooter companies employing anti-sidewalk technology that issues warnings and result in a depowered scooter? I don't know about that. I've heard about that, but we can bring that up. We can bring that up with DDOT. He does all the permitting and regulation for the scooters. Constitution Ave is in the scope, so we can look at that. I really apologize for my dog barking in the background if anyone hears that. He's behind a closed door, but you may hear him still. Have there been many traffic injuries downtown? I think the short answer is yes, and we have some more detailed numbers we can get into, and we'll have them in our first report and final report. But they're on some of those corridors we looked at earlier, mainly obviously the high pedestrian and high vehicle corridors. East Street listed on the DDOT website is protected bike lane for implementation in 2022. Do you have any updates on this project? I don't, Jacob, but we can find out, because East Street is definitely within the area that we're looking at, and the bike lane could be part of the solution. Often the protected bike lanes help also with pedestrian safety by shortening crossing distances, etc. Wow, are those all the questions? Do we have anybody that wants to ask their question? That's good, perfect timing. Ask their question out loud verbally. We can spend another couple minutes or clarify any of the questions or answers that we gave. Can you fix up the tree boxes? Is the bid involved with the tree boxes in the bid area, Maria? Or is that DDOT or a combination of both?
The tree boxes, they are the responsibility of the adjacent building.
Okay.
To maintain per DDOT. So that's not something that we maintain, but we can definitely, if there's an issue, our operations team can help with resources or vendors or any ideas that they have in terms of rats and whatever concerns they have. So please reach out to us.
Yeah, Jake's got a good question there. How will we prioritize pilots? I mean, I think we're looking for some locations that will give us different tools and techniques, also different parts of the bid, and kind of different styles. Like, we talked about plaza, we talked about mid-block crossings. So we'd like to have a little of everything. The short answer is there's no magic formula for where they are or what type they are, but that's part of the reason we're here tonight. We'd like to, it's kind of trying to meet these mutual goals of safety, some demonstrated safety improvement as well as placemaking. And I think the good news is that we've seen a lot of that taking place via DDOT and other entities throughout the city. And we've got some good examples in DC and around the country that we can hopefully bring. I mean, unfortunately, we only have 3 for the pilot, but hopefully if they work, we can expand them. And, so something that works in one of the neighbor, maybe we'll find something that's unique for the bid. The downtown is a little bit different than most of the neighborhood projects that have gone in. So maybe we'll find some things that can be replicated throughout the bid. Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Commission. What works also encourage y'all to consult Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Commission. Oh, the city. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes. Yes, we would like to consult with that group as well as the Pedestrian Advisory Council. So if anybody, Kartik, if you're part of that group or have contact, we welcome it. Otherwise, we will reach out.
So it looks like Alexander has his hand up. I'm going to allow to talk. Hello, Alexander?
Yes, thank you. So it's hard to tell from the map, but zooming in, it looks like you're looking at both sides of 9th Street between Massachusetts and N. Is that right?
Let me see, Mass and yeah, well, we're looking at, I mean, not the one that shows up on here, 9th, is actually G, and then the other one you see is the Mount Vernon Square. That's what's on here now. But this is just the first cut. We're looking at whatever you'd like us to look at.
Sure. So on the west side of 9th Street, between Massachusetts and N, and specifically between L and N, the sidewalks are just barely ADA compliant. Two people cannot walk down the sidewalk side by side. Folks with wheelchairs have difficulty dealing with the stairs that project into the sidewalks and the street furniture. It's really a mess. The community really had hoped that when the convention center streetscape was completed, that the sidewalks were going to be widened so that folks could actually
Right.
walk, but they never did. So that's something that really should be taken a look at, because that is a mess.
Okay. Yeah, the west side. So with the more traditional historic buildings on that side, yeah, we can take a look at that and see if anything can be rearranged. Could be tough, but might be something we can do. I know that on the east side of 9th Street in that strip, that's where the new protective.
On the convention center side, those sidewalks are fine. They're in a
yeah.
On the west side of the street,
I know what you mean. There's like steps going into the right of way and walls.
The pedestrian hell.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we got some more in the chat or in the Q&A. There's a structure at 9th and Mount Vernon. There's an extremely useful pedestrian crossing. Seems to resemble recommendation. Yes, I believe that Sarita is talking about the new pedestrian islands that are actually part of the bike lane project. And those types, median crossing is definitely something that we can look at where we have the space. And we can do a short-term version as part of one of the pilots, or look at a longer term. The ones you're talking about are, I believe it's the ones, if it's the one I'm thinking of, the new ones on the west side of the street that are being done as part of the bike lane project.
Mhm.
They are nice, and they're obviously helpful for crossing the street as well as protecting the bike. The bid assign a street cleaner to 7th Street to pick up litter throughout the day. I'll let you take that one, Maria.
If it's throughout the whole corridor, I will relay this information to our operations team and have them see if they can add it to their rotations if they haven't already
Mhm.
been. Yeah.
I like this last one here about all ages. That is actually something we have thought about. And that area on 13th near Franklin Park could be an area where we try to have maybe a kid-friendly crossing, because you've got the new museum on one side and the new playground on the other side. It would be nice to do the National Portrait Gallery, because their courtyard is kid-friendly. Yes, yes. Yeah, but the Portrait Gallery, 7th Street, F Street, obviously a hot area for pedestrians, potential for placemaking. Obviously a lot of activity already going on there, like the holiday market and other events that have been held there. So we'll talk to a bit about that and the rest of F Street, for example. Anybody else have any specific intersections or streets they want us to look at or not look at? Wow, okay. Oh, there's one more. What about streets in DuPont Circle? Yeah, there's a separate bid, Business Improvement District for DuPont Circle, as well as obviously DDOT and other folks. So it depends on what you're looking for there. Third and K crossing is tough. Yeah, we only have a couple ideas for the kind of east end of the bid, so that's good to have one more in there.
Yeah.
Will Chinatown intersection be full open to diagonal crossing like before? Did that work? Are we talking about 7th and H? Is that not the Barnes dance anymore? It still has diagonal crossing, right? As far as I know,
7th and H. Yeah.
with the diagonal, with the
Mhm.
Chinese character. I think it's, did that work? I think the short answer is yes. I think people like that. And efforts to create gateways at the exits of tunnels under the mall. Yeah, we are looking at some of those, both like, for example, D and 3rd, as well as 2nd and some of the new exits near the Georgetown Law School and the new development there. Left turns from 7th to F, with 7th repaved because increased. Okay. Third and K. Oh, someone's working on 3rd and K. Thanks, Kenya. Yeah, I guess 3rd and K is not in the bid. Sorry. In the other bid. Like the suggestion for creating safe plazas, just closing I Street between 5th and 6th. Okay. Another vote for I Street. 8th Street, yeah. Yeah, so we've looked at 8th Street, and I think that's an interesting possibility. It's nice because there isn't a lot of vehicle traffic, but it does kind of fit into that criteria of not having a lot of existing, if we're talking about north of the Portrait Gallery, between the Portrait Gallery and Mount Vernon Square, it's a little bit lacking in retail and other activity. So we would have to make sure that it was somehow active. And there's that debate about whether closing it would bring activity or further decrease the activity. But it's a good question, Kartik. Certainly ripe for some intervention. I'll stay here all night, but I'm guessing some of my colleagues would like to eat dinner, go to bed. Maybe some of the residents would also.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Jim will put his cell phone number in the chat. And
You guys know where to find me, I'm sure. But yeah, I think we talked about next steps earlier. If anybody has any comments, what should we do, Maria? Should we have them? Is there a way to comment from the website or the microsite? Or we have that option, or should we have them contact you directly?
Yeah, I think
Your
right
email
now-
address is really easy.
Yes, I think right now, contacting us directly, I'll put it in the chat, but my email is maria@downtowndc.org or alex@downtowndc.org. And I'll put it for everyone to have. If you have any comments or questions, please let us know, or any follow-ups that you have for us while we get that site up and running. So I'm gonna put that in.
Yeah, I hate to cut this off. We've got more good stuff coming in, York Avenue. Okay. But I think it might be time.
Yes.
You want to wrap us up, Maria?
Yes. So thank you, everyone. It has been a fantastic meeting. Thank you for all your feedback and engagement tonight. Thank you for joining us. Your time and engagement is essential in this process for planning of safer and improved experiences throughout downtown. Thank you, Jim, Brittany, and Scott, for this amazing presentation. We will share future meetings and pop-up event information online. And yeah, thank you for your time.